About a year ago, I released a video on my channel about scraping e-commerce product data from a website using Python. We used requests and Beautiful Soup to loop through and grab as much of the data as we could from each of the individual product pages. So what I thought I would do in this week's weekly web scraper is that we would revisit that and I would write a up-to-date, better, simpler and easier to read web scraper. So we're going to use the same Python packages, we're going to use requests and Beautiful Soup, but we're actually going to use CSS selectors to get the data this time. It's much clearer in my opinion and easier, and the whole thing's just much more neat and tidy. As I know, if you're into web scraping content, I've got loads on my channel already and more to come, so you should consider subscribing. So let's get into it and let's start writing the code.
Okay, so let's get started. This is the website that we are looking at, and I'm actually in the Wild Whiskey section, and I've got the 120 products per page. We've got a couple of pages. It actually gives you the option over here under the sort and filter to see you can get page size. That changes the URL up here, so all I did was set it to the maximum, so we have to loop through as few pages as possible, and I've copied the URL and I'm going to put it into my code. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to import what we need, so let's do import requests, and from BS4 Beautiful Soup, which we are going to use to pass the HTML data. However, as you'll see when we get a bit further down, and as I mentioned in the intro, we're not actually going to be using the sort of standard way of passing HTML with Beautiful Soup. We're going to be using the CSS selectors. So that might be new to you, but it's pretty cool and I much prefer CSS selectors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write a function that's going to get all of the product URLs off of the page. So I'm going to say def for defining a new function. I'm going to call this get page links. And we're going to make sure we give it a URL when we start, because we're going to give it the main URL and then it's going to get all the links off of that page. So we want to do r is equal to requests.get URL, because that's going to get all the data from that URL that we give it. And then we're going to say sp is equal to Beautiful Soup, and we're going to do the r.text. We want the text value of our response that we asked for from the server, and I'm just going to use the LXML parser in this case. Doesn't matter which one you use whichever one you like. The next thing that we want to do is we want to actually find where those links are on the page. So I'm going to come back to the website and I'm going to do inspect for the inspect element, and I will zoom in a bit more so we can all see. And now, using the highlight tool, I'm just going to hover over one of the links here. Now, the first thing that I notice right away is that all of these items, all of these products are actually in this list class, product grid item, which is really good because that makes it nice and easy and uniform for us to find. So I'm going to collapse it down just for the moment, and we can see that they're all there. Great. So opening up the first one again, we're just going to go down the tree until we find the actual link, which we can see is here. And it's an A tag with the href obviously that we need. And it gives us a partial link there. So that suggests to me that we're going to need to have a base URL that we can add on or concat with this to get a full URL. But everything is under this li class product grid item and then an A tag. So using CSS selectors, we can quickly and easily get all of these off this page. So if we come back to our code, what we want to do is we want to say all of our links are going to be sp for soup.select. So we're using instead of .find or find all, we're using select, or you can see we can have select one. Select will return everything, select one just returns the first one, and this lets us use the CSS selectors on this page. Now we want to say it was an li and with the class of this, and then by giving it a space and then the A tag, we are saying we want all of the A tags that come under this specific list item with this class name. So that's going to get all of them out. So if I was to print the links now, and then let's copy this function and let's run it. I just need to grab the URL again up here. If we run this, we're going to get a load of links back from this page. So we can see that if I scroll up and find a complete one somewhere, you can see, let's find it here. So here's the A tag, the class, and there's the href, and we get all of this extra data in as well, which we are not interested in. This is the only bit that we want, the href. So what we need to do is we need to loop through each of these elements and only get the href attribute out. Now the easiest way to do that, just give yourself a bit more space, is to just do a for loop. And to get the attribute, we would do .attrs and then ask for the href. So I'm going to say, let's do return, because we are going to return this information out of our function. And we're going to say, we want to say link dot attrs for attributes and the href attribute for link in links. So this is just list comprehension, and all it is we've kind of just flattened a for loop into one line. So you can see we would say for link in links and then link dot attrs attributes href. So all we're doing is we're just sort of flattening out into one line. But as we noticed before, if I print this out, we are missing the first part of the URL. So you can see them there, but we don't have the actual HTTP part, so we need to add that in. The easiest way to do that is just to copy the first part that you want to put in, and in our function I'm going to say our base URL is equal to this, and then we are just going to add that to the front of each one of these to make a complete URL. So I can say here base URL plus, and we can do plus because they are both strings, and that will give us exactly what we are after. So now you can see when I hover over these, it's actually VS Code is saying this is an actual complete link, and we could control click to follow it if we wanted to. So now that I know that we have all of the links off of this first page, we can now move on to looking at the individual product pages and getting specific data from them. So if I head back over to the website and we'll just pick this product first, we can see that we have, let's get that there's a name, there should be a price somewhere, there's an in-stock availability type thing, so that's useful. But basically any information on this page you could get. I'm going to go ahead and do the name, the in-stock, the price, and the description. So to get going with that, we want to hover over the name, and we can find that it's in this h1 class product name underscore underscore name. So we're going to copy that. And what we're going to do is we're going to write a new function, and we're going to say the product data, and we need to be giving this a URL because we're going to give this the individual product page URL. And then again, we want to do r is equal to request.get and create our soup. So I'm going to copy that, put that there. Now what we want to do is actually create some kind of structure for our data. I always tend to use a dictionary for this because that gives you a nice easy way to manipulate it and look at it, and it's easy to export as well. So quite often what I'll do is I'll just test to see if the information is there and then create it into a dictionary. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create our product dictionary first here. And now I'm going to define our keys, and then I'm going to put in the code where we find the information that we want that key. We find the value that we want for that key. So the one we want first is the title, and then we want the price, then the stock availability, or we'll just call it stock, and then the description, which we're going to call description. So if I go back to the code, we said this was the product name was in an h1 tag with product name class here, so that's nice and easy. We can do sp for our soup, which we've defined here. I know we've called it the same up here, but it will be fine because they're not going to be running at the same time. And we want to do select one. So what this is, it's going to select the first one. If you've used request HTML before, this is the same as first is equal to true. It just doesn't, it makes it not return a list, so we can just pass it. And I'm going to say h1 dot product name class, which was the class we just copied out. And I'm going to do dot text. So I know straight away, just because I've just looked at this, that there's a lot of white space around this, and also there is this part here, small bottle. So this is going to come under it as well. So what I want to do is I want to strip the white space, and I'm also going to replace any new lines with just a space as well. So if we leave the new lines in when we try to export it, our CSV will be all out of line because it's adding a new line in each time. Not what we want. So first, straight away, I'm going to do dot strip to remove the white space, and then dot replace, and a new line in Python is a backslash and an N, and we're going to replace it. Let's just replace it with nothing and see how that looks. We need a comma at the end because we are creating a dictionary, and now we need to go ahead and find where the price information is. Again, hover over with our inspect element tool. The price is here, and we have a P class here, so let's copy the class out and do sp.select1 again, and it was a P tag, so we do P, a dot which says we are looking for the class, and add that in. And I'm going to go ahead and just add all of this dot text strip and replace at the end as well, just in case there's any white space or new lines added in to the price value as well. Right, same for the price. The in stock, the availability, and we have it here as a stock flag and an I. So we can just go ahead and get this. I think that will be fine. And again, sp.select1 to get the first one, and I think it was a P with that class. And again, we can do our dot text dot strip dot replace just to be sure. Put that in there, and now the description down here. And it is in the div class with main description and then a P tag. So we'll just stick that in as well. sp.select1, and it was a div. And again, we had the class and dot and with a space, and then the P. We'll just get the information from the P tag after that. And again, we'll just do our dot text dot strip dot replace to be safe. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to print out the product data that we have just collected here. So to run this function, I'm going to copy the function name. We're going to comment out this one because we don't need it at the moment. And I'm going to run it on a product URL, which might as well be this one. So let's put that in. And if we get no errors, we should have a nice output here, which you can see straight away. So I've got the title key, which is what we just picked up. And you can see here that we've got where the new line would be, it's just put it together. So I'm going to change that whilst I'm here to a space, just so it's a bit easier to read. So on the title, instead of nothing, I'm going to make it a space. And let's run that again. There we go. So we've now got the space in there instead. So that's just a bit neat and tidier. The price has the pound symbol in it. If you wanted to do some kind of price comparison, I would remove the currency symbol and then change this to an integer, just so it's easier to manipulate. Actually, let's do that now. Why not? So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to do dot replace. We didn't find any spaces, I don't think. So let's replace the pound symbol. And what we're going to do is we're going to say int, and we're going to wrap the whole thing in an integer. And we need the comma actually outside of that. So what that means is it's going to remove this and then turn this whole thing into an integer. So it's actually a number that we can use. And that won't work because int is a whole number. I should have known that. We actually need float, which gives us a decimal point floating number. There we go. And we've now got 22.25 as the price. So what we could do then when we get our data out into CSV or whatever is it will treat it as a floating point number. So we can sort by it, or we can say this minus a certain amount. It's just easier to work with. But we can see that that has worked nicely. We have the description out here as well. So what we want to do now is we want to basically get all of the links out and combine these two functions together. So we say let's get all of our links and then let's get all of the product data. Now the way I like to do that now is I like to write a main function, and we're going to say our main function kind of runs everything else. So let's define main, and then we're going to say we can actually, let's delete this product data one. I'm going to zoom out one more. Hopefully you guys can still see it just because these lines are getting a bit long. We're going to say get page links, and we'll copy the whole of that. Let's put that in here, and then we want to do this one. So let's put that in here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to comment out the print, and I'm going to, instead of printing it, I'm going to return this product. And that means that when this function runs, the actual product information that we had just printed to the screen gets returned by the function, so we can do something with it, i.e. store it in a variable. So now we want to say our URLs is equal to get page links, and we still have it down here, which is handy. So let's copy that and put that in, and now we can remove this line that I had commented it out. And I'm going to say our results is equal to product data URL, but we need to loop through each URL from this function that is returning all of the product URLs. So we're going to do again some nice list comprehension, and we're going to put these in square brackets, and we're going to say results is equal to product data URL for URL in URLs. So what we're saying is, here's our URLs list, this is the first part of our for loop, and we're saying do this to each one and then save it in results. And I'm going to return the results list, which is going to be a list of dictionaries, and then I'm going to run on my main function. I'm actually just going to print it out like this. So we're saying when we run it, it's going to return all the results from our main function. We're just going to print them out now, and this should give us, I believe, it should give us 120 products. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reduce that down for the sake of this exercise whilst we're just making sure everything's working. And I think one of the options was 24. Let's find out. We're probably not going to get any output on the screen for a while because I didn't put anything in there, which is probably not a great idea. But there we go. So we can see that we have a lot of information, and I think this will be 24 products of the price, etc., etc., etc. So now that we know that that is working, what we want to do now is we want to find a way to output this information to some kind of storage file, a CSV in this case, and we also want to deal with the pagination. Now, there's a few options when it comes to pagination. Sometimes the website will let you can check easily enough on the page link. So if we scroll to the bottom, you can see it says page 1 of 2, and there's a button to click. However, this isn't an actual, although it's a button, it's like I think JavaScript or some kind of something like that, which means that we can't pull out any information. Sometimes it just has the next page URL and then it's nothing, so you can do an if statement on that and get that to work. But what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to do it a bit more manually, and we're going to do a for x in range, and we're just going to say this many pages. So it's nice and easy to do, and we don't really need to change too much in our code. So the first thing that we need to think about is the results that we're returning. So we're saying right now we are returning a list of dictionaries of each of the products that we found on this one page. But when we loop through each page, we want to be able to store all of the results as opposed to just exporting each page out as it comes. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to create a results list. And we're going to then add everything to our results list and deal with it all at the end. So I'm going to say for x in range, and I'm going to do, for now, I'm going to do 1 to 3, and we're going to get 2 pages. Now I'm going to indent these so they come under the for loop like that. And we're going to do an f string here, and we're going to change here where it says pg is equal to 1, which is the page number, and we're going to change that to our x. So for x, so every time x gets another number, it's added into this and it gives us the next page. This is the easiest way to do it, although you can't then, it's a bit more difficult to error handle it, so you might have to do a try and except, so if it doesn't return any data, but this is just the easiest way that I find to do it, so that's what we're going to be doing. The next change I'm going to make is, instead of, because we're calling our list results, I'm going to call this product info, and we're going to say underneath results.append our product info. And what we're doing here is we are just appending each iteration of this into our results list that we can then return out. So what we're going to get out now is we're going to go through the first page, and then we're going to get all of the product information from those products and store it into product info here and append it to our list. So we're going to end up with a list of dictionaries. That can seem maybe a bit too far down, maybe a bit problematic, but we can actually use iter tools at the end to flatten it all back out and make it nice and easy into a pandas data frame. So I'll show you that in a minute. And what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to do pages 1 and 2, and we're going to print the results out and see and check that it's all working and that we're getting what we expect to see. Checking this out, I can see right at the bottom here at the end we have two brackets, which means we have a list within a list, and then you can see the next one, which is our dictionary. So I'm going to say that this has worked, and I reckon there's probably 48 results in here because obviously we've done 24 page size and we've got 2. So I'm going to close that out, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add in a print statement just so I can see it working, and we're going to not print out the results of main because we're going to do something without them. So we're going to do something instead with them. So let's do here print I never know what to say here, page, and let's do X, F string, and we'll do page X so we know which one we're on, completed, that'll do. So we're nearly there now. I'm just going to remove this print statement out here, just make it a bit tidier. So now I want to think about how I'm going to export all of this data to a CSV file or something similar, and I always like to use pandas for that. I always say the same thing, pandas is probably overkill for this, but hey, I use it, I like it, it works absolutely fine. So let's import pandas as PD, and down here after our main function we want to say df, which is our data frame, so pd.dataframe, and we want to get the results out of what comes back from our main function. So instead of storing this in a variable, we could actually just copy this and put it in here. That will work just fine. And then we want to do df.toCSV, and let's just call this one world1.csv, and index is equal to false because we don't want the pandas main data frame indexes, we only want our CSV one. And then let's just do print saved to CSV. So if you remember, I said that we're getting a list of dictionaries and that we would need to use itertools to sort of flatten it out before we did that. So I'm just going to show you what will happen if you don't do that and what your output will be. So if I run this now, we should hopefully get page 1 completed and now page 2 completed and a save to CSV file. When we open this CSV file up, you can see that this is not what we wanted to get back. All we've got is our load of numbers, and then we've got our actual dictionaries all along the same line, which is just not what we wanted to get out. And that's because the way pandas has worked is it's not gone all the way down to get that information. It's just basically returning this out. Now this could be absolutely fine if you're working with this programmatically, but because we want it to be human readable, we want to flatten this out to a CSV file that we could open in Excel or whatever and do something with or have a look at in that format. So to do that, what we want to do is we want to use itertools. Now we want to use the chain from iterable, and what that is, it's going to basically take our lists. So remember I said we had list of dictionaries. It's going to take our list and it's just going to chain them all together. So it's going to basically take our list of lists and turn it into one list, which is then easier for pandas to flatten and get everything right. Sounds more complicated than it is. It's just a few lines of code. So let's just import that in now. So I'm going to do from itertools, which is in the pandas standard Python library, so you don't need to worry about it. And we're going to import chain. And we just need to change this line here. So we want to say, because we're dealing with a list, we want to say list and then chain dot from iterable. So what that's going to do is it's going to take our, is that right? And we're one short there. There we go. So it's going to take our list of lists, it's going to turn it into one list, which is going to be a list of dictionaries, which our pandas data frame will read much easier, and we'll get exactly what we wanted out at the end. So I'm going to run this again, and we'll check the output that we get from our CSV. There we go, it's finished. And now we can see we have exactly what we would want and what we would expect. And we got 48 results, 49 lines. Let's just run it on a few more pages to make sure that it all works. Let's just do 1 to 5 and we'll run that, and we'll just see that the output comes out as we expect. I haven't actually run into any errors with finding any data for this one yet. As you can see, I've got no error handling going on at all up here. So if you come across any issues where it says, for example, it can't find a certain part of information, the easiest way to do that is to manage it with a try and accept or something similar, or if this doesn't exist, set it to nothing. So we got no errors in this one, and here we have all of the data, and that was we can see we've got 96 different products. Most of it's in stock, which was quite cool. So anyway, this was a really fun example, take on a different take on a website that I've already done on my channel. I think this version is obviously much better and much clearer and easier. CSS selectors are definitely the way forward in my opinion, and you can use them with Beautiful Soup 4 using the soup.select, and we used itertools just to make it a bit easier for our pandas data frame to get it the way that we want to for our exporting. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know with your thoughts down in the comment section below. Like the video if you like it always helps me, and don't forget to subscribe if you're into this sort of content. Thank you very much, guys. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.